When you're ready. Yep.
Wait, you gonna get your mic?
Well, I'm going to press play, then we're going to wait a 10-second delay. We're going to count you down. Yep. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back to the Scramble. I'm your host, Maggie Jakopac.
I would say I'm a host too. Just kidding. I'm just a co-host, just like you are. My name is Noah Festenstein. Ready to join in for another great podcast. It's going to scramble your minds. That's what's going to happen today. What are we looking forward to today in the podcast?
Yeah, today we're talking about the Rubiks Cube versus the Cubical Lawsuit, and we're going to talk about the Angstrom research started by Chris Tran, and then at the end we're just going to update you guys on some competitions we're going to.
Awesome. I'm just going to warn the audience is I don't know really much about these two topics, but I definitely have some good opinions on what the possible outcomes are in this. So I'm ready to go. Are you ready to go? Definitely. All right, let's do it.
Yeah, so Cubicle versus Rubiks lawsuit. That was, I'm pretty sure it started, in October is where it sort of picked up. And we don't know too much about it. We're pulling up the
Well, if you simply just Google Rubiks versus Cubicle lawsuit, I think the first link that you press is from Speedcube or speedsolving.com, and it gives you a link in the first little comment section, the top number 1, and it gives you all the details of the lawsuit, which we'll probably review right now. It's bloomberglaw.com. There we go. So the complaint was on behalf of the Rubiks brand, and it was through their attorneys. And the complaint was against Cubicle, as mentioned. And the alleged is as follows. It gives us 30 points of why Rubiks ended up suing. Do you have any other details on that, Maggie? Why did they sue, first of all?
That was for the copyright infringement, right?
Right, and there was some copyright infringement or supposed copyright infringement on behalf of the Cubicle, because I think there was one point where Rubiks thought that Rubiks brand thought that Cubicle products resonated Rubiks brand products, it's not really copyright. It's like Rubiks has a certain patent on their product that can't be really matched by any, because obviously Rubiks brand is the original. Yeah. But Maggie, you brought up a good point before the podcast of why they ended up, because you're a Speedcuber. The Cubicle Shop is a Speedcube Shop retailer, like any other Speedcube shop, like Speedcube Shop, or yada yada yada. But what was your point you made to me earlier today in regards to why the Cubicle was sued by Rubiks?
What was my point?
So you thought that the Cubicle, it's a Speedcube shop, and Speedcube nowadays, the market for Speedcubing is exponentially grown over time, to the point where, like, okay, Rubiks was kind of like the dark horse in this. They're like, okay, well, we kind of want to get into Speedcubing a little bit. Let's invent a product where we can make it a Speedcube. But apparently they were too late in it, because they thought that simply solving the Rubik's Cube was justifiable enough.
I actually think that they may have wanted to do this lawsuit way earlier. I'm not sure I don't know if you remember, but like when the Rubiks brand Speedcube came out, like they did a new version of the Rubiks brand cube, and I think that they used that as a way to sort of get into the Speedcubing, like sort of inch their way in there, and it obviously didn't work very well. And then with Cuban USA not inviting them to sponsor nationals last year, like all of that just coming together, I think that's when they wanted to do the lawsuit. I think they would have done it earlier if they hadn't done anything with the Speedcube.
Now, I'm pretty sure a lot of people listening are pressing the question, what was the outcome of this? Has there been an outcome? Has anything been resolved? I don't think anything has. Well, first of all, lawsuits like this...
They have a GoFundMe right now for the lawsuit, because it's obviously very expensive, and usually the person with the most money ends up winning the case, so which is Rubiks.
Right,
So that's
obviously.
why the GoFundMe is up right now, which we will leave in the link, or leave the link.
And
We will
I
leave
bet
in the
you
description.
A lot of Rubik's attorneys looked at the Cubicle and was like, "Yeah, I think the money is going to help us win this," and inevitably Rubik's is going to make a lot of money, and with the intent of getting name recognition, more speed cubing competitions are going to have Rubik's sponsor those competitions, because when we look 5 some years down the future, who's going to be sponsoring these events? And first of all,
Well, not Rubiks, because I mean, after this whole lawsuit thing, no one's gonna want them to sponsor anything.
right. And
I mean, the whole community is like very angry with.
can I
Rubiks
ask you
right now.
something? Because you are sponsored by Speedcube Shop.
Yeah.
And obviously, we're not looking down upon any Speedcube Shop retailer, because obviously they do their job with great passion, and they take good care, or they take good value in their customer service and all that good stuff. But do you think that since Speedcube Shop is a competitor of the Cubicle, that they're looking at this situation where they're like, "Gosh, I'm glad I'm not in this right now"? Like, how do you think they're reacting to this?
I would say they're probably angry too, and also, I mean, this could happen to them. It could. I mean, Rubik's could go after if they're going after the Cubicle. I don't really doubt that they're gonna go after Speedcube Shop at some point.
Right. I wouldn't doubt that either. Especially if they win, they're like, "Oh wow, we succeeded in one lawsuit. We're gonna go to another one."
Yeah.
But Speedcube Shop should learn from that, or any other Speedcube shop that sells speed cubes should learn off of this type of lawsuit so that it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
But pending the outcome of it, I really don't see a really good point in why this lawsuit actually became a thing. I think the one thing that could be taken off of it is Rubik's was the first cube retailer on the market. They just didn't take advantage of speed cubing because they thought that just simply solving the Rubik's Cube justified enough for selling the product. Until the 1980s, they started doing cubing competitions. And when did the Cubicle even become active? Was it like some late 2000s, something like that, where speed cubing started becoming, a hobby, if you may say, where people would want to go to a retail shop for specific speed cubes? Who knows?
But then there's also like the jobs that are gonna be potentially lost.
Yeah.
The Cubicle employees are gonna be out of a job, and I watched I don't know, I'm sure a lot of people watched his video the other day. Chris Olsen, Noah and I watched his video, and he was talking about just how years ago no one would have ever thought that cubing would be something where you could have a job. Yeah. And so for Rubiks to just step in and do this lawsuit and take those jobs away from these people that are very passionate about cubing, and we're just so grateful to have a job in cubing, for them to just take that away is kind of,
it's degrading a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's kind of insulting, if you may say, from a speedcuber's perspective. I don't know what Rubiks wants out of this, what the outcome is. Do they want to be sponsored by speedcubing competitions? Do they just want it for the money? Or do they just say, "Hey, we're just jealous and we're going to sue an entire cubing retailer just because we want to"? Is it worth it? Because we know Rubiks has enough money to do so, but to drain out the pockets of another cube retailer like that, it's a little degrading, and I agree with that.
I don't know if anyone has talked about custom cubes and how that plays in, because cubing started with Rubiks, and now that they got left out and tossed aside when cube stores started doing custom cubes, and now they just want back in, or are using horrible tactics to make their way back into the community.
Horrible tactics. What do you mean by horrible tactics?
Just the lawsuit. I mean, just using that to get their way back in.
Yeah.
And then I heard that they were angry because Cuban USA did not invite them to sponsor nationals last year, which is ridiculous. You weren't like you weren't invited because no one wants you to be a part of the community. I mean, after the lawsuit, the community is pretty angry after that, so I'm sure no one's gonna want them to sponsor the comps.
Right, and that's definitely not a way to approach it. I think it was definitely too aggressive, and